At the tone, the time will be
7:30. Exactly.
Hi, everybody. This is J.P. Patches. Welcome to Seattle Rewind with Feliks Banel.
Thanks, JP. And now it's time for a very special JP and Gertrude episode of Seattle Rewind for the SeattlePI.com. JP Patches has been played for well over half a century by Chris Wedes. Now 82 years old and living in the same house in Edmonds he shared with wife Joni for more than 5 decades. Chris and Joni moved from Minneapolis to Seattle in 1958 and brought the JP character with them to help launch KIRO TV. JP Patches was the first program seen on Channel 7 when the station signed on in February 1958, and the Patches program was a fixture on the KIRO TV schedule for nearly 24 years. With the addition of Bob Newman, who played sidekick/girlfriend Gertrude,
Julius, I gotta tell you, look at my dress.
Yes, and that's your new dress. Let's have a nice hand for
I know,
your
that's
secret.
I did not.
plus numerous other characters including Boris S. Wart,
Officer Friendly was here.
Hello, dear Poopsie.
Boris S. Ward!
Yes,
Friendly!
Boris S. Ward.
No.
The second biggest man in the world. It is I, and I'm here. That's it. Too bad.
Oh, in all your glory.
the JP Patches show was a mix of slapstick and vaudeville, with just the right amount of education and morality, and the occasional double entendre thrown in to keep it all entertaining and fun for kids as well as for the grown-ups. Seattle Rewind sat down with Chris Wedes earlier this week to hear more about JP's makeup, how Chris came to play JP, an infamous 1964 car wreck, potato chip fun with Steve Allen, and the surprising effect JP and Gertrude had on the lives of countless Patches pals.
Well, JP has rubber ears, which I hate. I never should have put rubber ears on. For one thing, they don't fit right. And clowns normally don't have rubber ears. I've been told that a million times by professional clowns. Real clowns don't have rubber ears. And I said, well, I'm not a real clown. I'm J.P. Patches. I'm different. Oh, really? Oh, okay. So I can get away with it. Then, of course, most clowns have a red nose. Naturally, I have a red nose. And red lips. And the eyebrows are kind of square. I have little triangular teardrops under my eyes. It doesn't mean I've been crying, but they're there. And then around my mouth, I have little swirls of black around the lips, and the lips are outlined in black. And it takes about a half an hour to put my makeup on, and it takes just as long to take it off, and I never get it off all the way around my eyes. There's always white around my eyes. It's very difficult to remove. Well, I hate to tell you, but there was another J.P. Patches in Minneapolis, and his name was Darrell Lobb, and he quit the station, and he went to a competing station, and he tried to take the name. But the station that I worked in, the previous station where he worked, owned the name. And my boss came to me and said, Chris, you have to take over the role as J.P. Patches. And I said, gosh, I'm doing Captain 11, I'm doing Joe the Cook, I'm doing Chuck Wagon Chuck. I'm on the air, I'm doing all these other characters. And he put his hand on my shoulder and said, Chris, how do you like working here? And that was the defining words. Oh, what happened was it was Sunday morning, and I was on my way to KIRO. They were doing a children's orthopedic fundraiser. And Bob Newman and I, Gertrude and I, would be on the street, and people would come by and donate money for children's orthopedic. And it was an all-day affair, and I was on my way down. I wasn't in makeup. I was going to the station to get made up. And I had a Volkswagen Bug, the early Bug. And a young driver, 16-year-old, went through a red light, and hit my car. Fortunately, in 1964, I was the only person in the state of Washington wearing a seatbelt. I actually wore a seatbelt, but it broke. But fortunately, it didn't throw me out of the car. And the ambulance arrived, and there was a photographer who was one of those guys that used to listen to police radio, and he would go to the scene and take pictures. And he took a picture of me being eased into the ambulance, and he found out who it was, and he sold the picture to the Seattle Times. So the next day in the Seattle Times, there was a picture of me, and it said, the caption, "Hey kids, this is J.P. Patches." Well, it so infuriated the subscribers, they canceled their subscription, and the Times thought I was going to sue them, and they immediately issued an apology, and they sent a reporter out here, and so it was covered. I should have sued him. There was a company here, a local company, Williams Potato Chips, and I was advertising them, and then they were bought out by Lay's, and they came to Seattle, and I had a Hollywood star on my program. Steve Allen appeared on my program, and I said, we were talking about his show and everything, and I said, "Excuse me, Steve, I have to tell the boys and girls about Lay's." And he said, "Lay's, what are they?" And they pushed this huge rack of potato chips in. And I said, "Well, now, this company came up here from California." So I said, "Well, you coming from California ought to know about Lay's." And, of course, it had that double entendre. He started laughing, hit the potato chip rack. All the potato chips fell on the floor. And I yelled at him. I said, "Steve, pick those potato chips on." So here's this multi-million-dollar guy giggling that famous laugh of his out there picking up potato chips and putting them up on the rack. But you were talking about the show. It honestly amazes me the love they have for the character, and there's no phoniness to them. I mean, they hug me, they cry, they actually cry when they see me. And I got tons of emails from people. They had, maybe their youth was, in some way they had problems growing up. I mean, you hear about it all the time. At the time, you're not aware of it. You're on the air doing a show, trying to have fun, doing something pleasurable that the kids would enjoy, but some of these kids were mistreated quite badly, And I get these emails, and they tell me, they said, the one salvation was you. You were there in the morning, and I could count on you, and then I'd come home in the afternoon, and you were there. It's just, I'm going to start crying now. Just thinking about it. I'm sorry.
It's clear that JP and Gertrude did much more than just entertain, and that for many of the Patches pals who tuned in every day, JP was more than just a cartoon jockey. The show was also popular with more functional families, of course, and JP and Gertrude remain among the most recognizable of local figures, despite having left the airwaves nearly 30 years ago. Chris Wedes, who still makes appearances as the now historic clown at festivals and private parties, has a few theories about why the show and the characters were such a hit.
It was more than a kid show. It really was. I never talked down the kids, and I was never a goody two-shoes. It was always, sometimes there's a little element of naughtiness to JP that maybe the kids kind of liked. And when I did something naughty, of course, I always got caught. I remember one time, Grandpa Patches was giving me money for piano lessons, and he decided to call me to come down to see how my piano lessons were. Well, I hadn't taken any lessons, So I immediately had Sturdley the bookworm play a record of a piano, and I pretended I was playing the piano. So Grandpa, and then we had a code. When I said it was okay, then the music started. And then when I'd say, that's fine, the music would stop. So we rehearsed it. Grandpa Patches came. He says, well, JP, are you ready for are you ready for the piano playing? And I said, yes, Grandpa. And then I sat down. I said, yes, things are okay. And Sturdley started playing the music, and I pretended. And I say, yes, that's really fine. And the music stopped. And Grandpa, and then I stood up, and I said, how was that? And Grandpa said, yes, it was okay. And then the music started again. I said, that's fine. And then it stopped. And then Grandpa said, yeah, okay. And then I said, fine. And then it was just pandemonium, you know.
Be sure and check out this week's Seattle Rewind photo gallery at seattlepi.com for historic images of J.P. Patches and Gertrude. You can also get audio and images from previous episodes as well. Seattle Rewind is written and produced by Feliks, Banel, and Casey McNerthney for the seattlepi.com.
So stay tuned.